Okay, so we're going to pick up pretty much where we left off on the last one, and that's going to be talking about Mr. Birling again, because Mr. Birling becomes the main character in this first part. He's the most important character. So, Mr. Birling is still talking to Eric and Gerald. And he talks about, it's a bit too early for that, talking about his knighthood. And then he starts to think he then says about having sort of just one obstacle to his knighthood. And that is being a nice, well-behaved family and not starting a scandal. So here's where we start to see a bit of foreboding here. Gerald says that you seem to be a nice, well-behaved family. You seem, okay? So that's the word that we want to focus on, because actually we know as an audience that we can kind of see the tension starting to develop, and we can start to see those strained family relationships. And Gerald sort of highlights that actually, you seem this way, but we know that it's going to go downhill from here, or we're at least expecting it, because there's so much tension in the first part of the play. So, Mr. Birling keeps going. He starts talking about different ideas about you young men going out and having fun. And if you read through page 9 now, pause, we'll move on. So that's to page 10. And on page 10, Birling then starts to talk about, or something that's really, really important here, and this is something that you really should learn for your exam. This is one of the most important quotes, in my opinion. I think it's one of the most important quotes in the entire play. He says, "But the way some of these cranks talk and write now, you'd think everybody has to look after everybody else, as if we're all mixed up together like bees in a hive, community and all that nonsense." Now, Mr. Birling was Lord Mayor. He was a politician. He was meant to look out for people. He was meant to promote community. As an audience, this is what we're expecting of him. He's getting a knighthood, or he thinks he's getting a knighthood. And actually, we're starting to realise here that this man is a very public man. He is a man that is meant to be trusted by the community, but he's just called the community nonsense. So look at that adjective nonsense and what it suggests, what it connotes. He's not taking these things seriously. He's pushing them away. He's not interested, and that's where we have the issue here. So community and all that nonsense is the follow-up to the simile, like bees in a hive. Now, bees in a hive, and this is really important where we zoom in on this simile, bees in a hive work together for one common goal. And the point of bees in a hive is that they are all working together to produce something, to create a community. Mr. Birling says, like bees in a hive, that we're not actually all mixed up together in this. And again, he's dismissive of the ideas of community, and that's really quite it's quite a criticism from Priestley here, that Birling, as a public man, as a previous Lord Mayor, as someone who's on the list to get a knighthood, is unable to actually comprehend the idea of community and caring. And that's where there's a massive issue here. And this is where, and we need to pause, we need to make notes on this. This is where Mr. Birling appears to be a very, very bad man. A man who is only interested in community for status and wealth. Rather than interested in promoting community. He just wants to seem like he cares about community. He wants to seem like he is a good man just so people will give him respect. But it doesn't actually mean that he is a good man. So that's where we really start to see these issues coming through here, with Priestley criticising these public men as actually very irresponsible people. Now, that links to context, because these public men are the ones who then start the wars. So there we have Priestley's anger as an author showing through. And this is the moment that there is a sharp ring of a front doorbell, and Edna comes in, their maid comes in to tell them that an inspector's come in. Now, this is a symbolic turning point of the play. Pause, write that down. The turning point of the play comes with the inspector, and it's really interesting. So the inspector, I've already told you, has come in to be the socialist voice, the voice of we need to all take care of each other. Look at the point at which he comes in. He comes in at the point in which Mr. Birling has just said community is nonsense. And now the inspector comes in. And this is a way that he's trying to change Mr. Birling's feelings, that he's trying to make us actually realise that Mr. Birling was wrong. He was incorrect. What he was saying, what he was doing, it was all very, very incorrect. And that's where this becomes the most interesting part of the play, this symbolic turning point here. So, Mr. Birling originally says, oh, Edna's going to answer it, just pour me another glass of port, and he kind of pushes the inspector away. But then later on, we start to see the inspector comes in very forcefully. If you look on page 11, start looking at those stage directions. The stage directions are really important because the inspector comes in, Edna goes, closes the door, and the inspector need not be a big man, but he creates at once an impression of massiveness, solidity, and purposefulness. Look at those three adjectives. He creates an impression of massiveness, as in he's a very big presence in this room. He's solid, he has a purpose, and that's really interesting as well. The inspector is therefore one solid purpose, and this is creating this idea